So when you talk of the defense partnership, is this just about the sale of GEF 414 jet engines for the Indian Air Force or about the MQ-9B Sea Guardian unmanned combat aerial vehicles? Is this all about challenging China, or is there much more to this partnership? Because it's not just about defense, there's also space exploration, there's also critical and emerging technology cooperation, chip manufacturing, and a lot more. I bring you this report, and before I bring you this report, let's quickly cut across to Washington DC. Let's cut across to White House. India Today's news director Rahul Kanwal joins us with the latest. And Rahul, the bilateral meetings are on. There are great expectations from this meeting and from the outcomes, Rahul.
Oh, absolutely. The meeting's already run over the initial schedule, about 20 minutes late already. Where we are, just in front is where you enter for the press conference. We're told that there will be one question each, one from the American media, one from the Indian journalists, when the press conference begins, and then we'll have the joint statement which is put out, where we'll really see how these two countries have been able to bring together in text the agreements that they've reached, the kind of understanding that both countries have come to. Gaurav, I remember you had come with us in 2014 when we were here for Prime Minister Modi's visit.
Yes.
2015 when he'd come to the UNGA, Madison Square Gardens, and at that time you could have said that, okay, here's a leader who's just got elected. There is a certain novelty to him coming to the US, especially since he was denied a visa. None of the popularity that we saw then seems to have diminished. In fact, it's probably already grown. These were the lawns of the Bidens where they were chanting Modi, Modi. American journalists here quite amazed, bewildered by the kind of scenes that we were seeing. One of them, in fact, told me that the last time they saw something similar, Gaurav, was when the Pope had come to the White House. That's the only time they've seen something similar to the kinds of scenes we've seen at the White House today. This, make no mistake, is history being scripted live and in front of eyes, and that's the coverage that we're bringing together in New Delhi and in Washington DC. A new chapter being written in the relationship, in the ties between India and the US. And you've tracked, Gaurav, the light combat aircraft jet engines which we've struggled with. The Kaveri engine, for various reasons on account of its weight, unwieldiness, simply wasn't able to deliver the kind of bang that the Indian Air Force wanted. Many pilots were quite unhappy with the performance of the light combat aircraft in its initial avatar. Hopefully, with this transfer of technology from GE, the GEF 414 jet engine should be able to really give the light combat aircraft the kind of airworthiness and the kind of combat capability that you'll need when you're going up against an F-16 in the case of the Pakistan Air Force, or in the case of the PLF, the Chinese Air Force. You would need the kind of technology that India is now being given access to, which it is denied so far. My big concern, I'm very curious to know what you think of this, Gaurav, is whether Hindustan Aeronautics will be able to deliver and execute on the technology that they're being given. You remember how Rafale, the manufacturers had concerns about our ability to be able to take that technology, deliver in real time, which kind of held up the contract before it became a government-to-government contract. It is what held up the contract initially because they were just not certain that HAL could deliver. Now they're getting this technology, different components of that technology. Will they then be able to assimilate it, deliver what they're being taught, and then even not just leave it where it is, but build on it and take it into the future by adding new layers of technology in the years to come, Gaurav?
Rahul, that's a very, very pertinent point that you raised there, because with that deal, of the UPA government, when it came to the Rafale, it got stuck because neither Hindustan Aeronautics Limited nor the manufacturers were willing to sign off. There was no clarity who would sign off on the final HAL manufactured Rafale jets, and it remained in limbo for an entire year. When the Modi government then took over, they then went in for a different deal, and that was precisely the reason how much of the technology can India assimilate? And I think that's one reason why in this G2G deal, there is also, the private sector is also likely to be roped in. You'll be in a better position to tell us the nuts and bolts of that MOU that's been signed between HAL and General Electric for the GE 414 engines. But you're absolutely right, Rahul. These engines will be a game changer for India, especially when they're manufactured in India for the Indian Air Force, Rahul. But it's not just about the fighter jet engines. There's a lot more on critical and emerging technologies, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, and that's where the role of Ajit Doval, our national security advisor, and in the case of the US, Jake Sullivan, becomes very crucial, because if these conversations were looked at purely from an external affairs or commercial, finance or industry, commerce perspective, then they're much tougher to come by. The moment there is a national security dimension, that's where Dr. Jaishankar and the Indian Ministry of External Affairs have been able to play this very smartly by giving it the national security dimension. A lot which would otherwise got held up in bureaucratic tangles here in DC, now getting expedited, and that's where ISET really has been a game changer. Not too many people know the nuances of ISET, but what I can broadly say is that it gives a framework where you're able to push through, and also it's not just the framework, it's also the reality of the threat posed by Beijing, which makes things critical for the US as well, because you want to muscle India out militarily if there is at all any counterbalance to Chinese hegemony in the Asian continent. It can only be in the form and shape of India. The other countries in Japan and South Korea are great friends of India, and those are relations the people of India and the governments of India will build on in the years to come, but they don't have the kind of population, the kind of might that a country like India has, especially the perpetuity value building out into the next 15-20 years, which is why it's also important for the United States at a time when it's facing these kind of challenges being posed by Beijing. It's important for the US also to ensure that India is capable of providing a security counter to China's nefarious designs in Asia and elsewhere, and in the Indo-Pacific. Gaurav.